that would be my framing of everything going on right now. Bitcoin is an idea whose time has come. I don't think, by the way, Scott, I don't think that the Bitcoin rally is due to mainstream adoption of Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin
Agreed.
rally is due to crypto adoption of Bitcoin.
Agreed.
This is a catalytic event, Scott, that has rallied the entire crypto community behind Bitcoin because we were at war with each other a year ago. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried and all of the other crypto ideas, of which there were probably 25 of them, they were frenemies, and they could not agree. And I think that when FTX melted down, I think it was a come to Jesus moment for crypto people because they realized that we really have to put our differences aside and agree on one thing, which is Bitcoin is good. Right. And if you want to boil this down, like my view is that's why Bitcoin is rallying right now. And we're still early days with regard to the mainstream community getting it. I'll make one more point now and I'll shut up. My last point is we're still 0.1%, 0.2% of the mainstream finance world. And so everything going on in the crypto ecosystem and the Bitcoin world is really just a sideshow. What happens in this mainstream opera, the regulators, the politicians, they're going to fight and they're going to take lots of action to stabilize that. That's above my pay grade. We're not going to fix that. There's a lot of complicated stuff that's going to go on. What you can expect is this is just taking us from 0.1% to 0.2% to 0.4%.
Michael Saylor has been one of the leading ambassadors of the Bitcoin vision since 2020 when he finally opened his mind to the possibilities that Bitcoin could bring to help against the debasement of fiat money. By then, Michael had to find a solution so he and his investors wouldn't lose their wealth, and he found it with this asset. To this day, his company MicroStrategy still holds over 130,000 Bitcoins, making it the largest Bitcoin holding public trading company. And in case you're wondering, he still has over 17,000 Bitcoins on his personal account. A few days ago, he was discussing with Scott Melker on Twitter Live what happened in the past 12 months and why Bitcoin is finally rallying since March, and this is a great discussion. According to Michael Saylor, this is the start of the next phase for Bitcoin that will take it to 10x from here, and the early adopters will profit a lot from the momentum. So pay close attention until the end, as this video has a ton of value and can truly make a difference in your life. First, let's hear Michael Saylor's opinion on the last 12 bloody months for Bitcoin.
I think it's worthwhile just to think of this and everything that's happened in the past year. And I think you could summarize this as there has been a crisis of confidence in the crypto industry, a micro crisis of confidence in the industry that is about 1% of the world's money. And now there is a second act, which is a mainstream crisis of confidence in traditional financial assets that is all the world's money. So I think about crypto as a couple of $1 trillion, and the world's got $500 trillion of financial assets or more. Roll the clock back 12 months and we'll just rifle through what's happened. This is, of course, my perspective, but one, we start with a crisis of confidence in crypto derivatives, and I call it Terra Luna complex. That was a very complex derivative constructed, and it crashes. Two, you have a crisis of confidence in crypto banks like BlockFi and Celsius. People find out that maybe they're riskier than they thought they were, and they melt down. Three, there's a crisis of confidence in crypto hedge funds like Three Arrows. First Three Arrows, eventually Alameda. And we think these geniuses that are smartest guys in the room aren't so smart anymore. Four, There's a crisis of confidence in crypto trading operations, OTC desk like Genesis, and people that are in the business of borrowing and lending out or rehypothecating Bitcoin or other crypto assets find themselves again on the wrong side of these trades, and they're wiped out. 5, there's a crisis of confidence in crypto exchanges. FTX is the most notable example of a meltdown, but generally there's just been massive pressure coming from the regulators on all the crypto exchanges, and we see the pressure placed on Coinbase, the pressure placed on Binance, etc., and that's created concerns, uncertainty. 6, crisis of confidence in crypto staking. You saw the SEC action against Kraken and the ETH staking pool, and Gensler has said staking is a security, and so there's a question of where does that sit. 7, there's a crisis of confidence in crypto securities. 8, this crisis of confidence in crypto settlement networks. Silvergate and Signature were the two major mainstream settlement networks. When Silvergate fails and Signature gets shut down, the question is, how do we settle on fiat rails? Big question mark. 9, crisis of confidence in cryptocurrencies, and here I refer to stable coins like BUSD. Obviously we saw what happened there. It gets attacked. Custodia gets blocked. Circle, has the mishap with Silicon Valley Bank. Tether has been under pressure. 10, crisis of confidence in crypto regulators. People people don't have confidence in the regulators, right? On one hand, we know they're hostile. On the other hand, there is no framework for registering a digital exchange, a digital security, a digital token, a digital commodity. So even though there's the thought that, well, we just got to register, there's no way to register. And so there is no framework, and then there's stress and there's tension between the regulators, between the SEC, the TFC, the CFTC. There's tension between the Department of Justice. There's tension between various regulators in different countries. And then 11, there's a crisis of confidence in the crypto lawmakers, the policymakers, right? There was a move to put forward legislation last year, like the Bozeman-Stabenow bill, and it just kind of imploded, and so crypto lobbyists, crypto lawmakers are all in disarray. That is the micro crisis of confidence in the crypto industry, and that's been playing out over 12 months. The thing that's enveloping it right now is a mainstream crisis of confidence. Then Silvergate failed. And it's, when a bank fails, if you can just blame the executive team or scapegoat, or say it's a one-off, it's, it's because of incompetence of management, or they were in the wrong business, then you can look the other way, and there's no, there's no mass scare. But of course, after Silvergate failed, then Silicon Valley Bank started to fail, and that created a bigger crisis, and that was sensitized, and I think it radicalized, if not engaged, all of the Silicon Valley tech VC community, and we saw them get very loud on Twitter. That actually escalated this thing, and then the shutdown of Silvergate, it accelerated the loss of confidence in the regulators, and it sort of says, it says that there's uncertainty here across the board, and it injected a slight dose of fear. I think the 3 in the hit parade of mainstream crisis of confidence is mid-sized banks, right? So the contagion spreads to mid-sized banks like FRC and the like, because they're all holding the same portfolios. And of course, at that point, people start asking the question, why are these banks in trouble? And so we actually see a crisis of confidence in bank accounting, because the reason they're in trouble is because they're not marking to market their assets. If they're marking their assets to market, they all would have had to take every time the Fed raises interest rates 25 basis points, you're going to have a $50 billion write-off by the banks. And And by the time you raise, interest rates 300 or 400 basis points, you would have a $10 trillion, multi-trillion dollar write-off of banks. But because they've got the ability to hold these assets to maturity, they're not writing them out. So now we think, well, we don't really trust the banks, but we also don't trust the accounting. And then Credit Suisse catches fire. And then we think, well, that's a small thing. And then the Swiss National Bank's going to bail them out for $50 billion. Okay, well, you would think that a $50 billion bailout from the National Bank of Switzerland puts that thing to rest. But it doesn't, which makes you think, oh, more than $50 billion got withdrawn from that bank. Now they have to merge it with UBS. Now UBS is afraid to buy it. They want government guarantees. Now the Swiss National Bank has to put up 100 billion in Swiss francs. Oops. If this is that big in Switzerland, if you got a problem of $100 billion in Switzerland, you got to multiply that by at least 10, right? So now it starts to look like $1 trillion problem.
So what happened in the last 12 weeks?
What's happened in the last 2 weeks? Massive Bitcoin rally. Why? Well, I think that if you just put all that into your synthesizer and you say, what do I trust? What am I willing to invest my money in? Where's my safe haven with all this anxiety? And the safe haven is simple. It's Bitcoin the asset, Bitcoin the network, right? Those two things are your safe haven. Bitcoin the asset is the safest currency, the safest investment asset I can find because it lacks counterparty risk, and because all of the 11 meltdowns I mentioned in the crypto market, all 11 of those catastrophes have not stopped Bitcoin from functioning. It has survived them all. And so I sense in the crypto community, Scott, a grudging respect growing over the past 12 months for Bitcoin. If you roll the clock back 12 months ago, there are a lot of people that just, the trolls said, oh, it's boomer coin. I'm not going to say who, but many people said it will be irrelevant in 5 years. It's the last thing. It's aged tech. And I think that what they realized is that, when there's infinite money and the regulators are not active and the politicians aren't noticing you, then you can have a lot of fragile structures. We had a lot of fragile, overly complicated Rube Goldberg devices in the crypto industry, Terra Luna being the most famous example, that they kind of flew, and then as soon as there's pressure on them, you just realize they're unstable. They're too complicated. Maybe they're good ideas, but they're implemented in an unstable fashion or irresponsible fashion or non-compliant fashion, and when scrutiny comes to them, they're going to collapse. And all of the bankrupt entities, right? BlockFi was a good idea, but it was unstable. Celsius, unstable, right? All these things unstable. They all collapsed. But, in their defense, would be all fractional reserve banks, right? If you're collecting $100 billion in deposits that you have to deliver on 1 day notice back to the depositor or 1 hour notice, and if you're turning around and lending it out for 30 years and a fixed mortgage rate security, that was a bit fragile. And of course, if you bought bonds with it that had a 10 or 20 year duration, that was also unstable. So what we're seeing is a lot of overly complicated schemes to generate yield collapse under this kind of stress. So I think people realize maybe Bitcoin's not such a bad idea, like no yield and no counterparty risk. And, Satoshi's not around to embarrass us.
Why is Bitcoin rallying for the past month?
Why is Bitcoin rallying? The answer is every other idea for investment seems like a pretty bad idea right now, Scott. And everybody that understands Bitcoin really well, that also had their money in altcoins or stable coins or other investment ideas, or if you're a crypto VC or you're a stable coin holder or you're a whatever, you're thinking, well, that is more risky than I thought it was, and it didn't work out as well as I thought it would. And so what do I know that I can run to in times of stress? It's Bitcoin. If if the stable coins, when BUSD is not available to me, and when Silvergate and Signature are not available to me, and I need to settle on the weekend, right? I'm driven from those stable coins into Tether, but then if I start to get worried about Tether, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to old school, and old school was Bitcoin was the unit of account in the crypto economy, right? Tether and stable coins made the US dollar the unit of account in the crypto economy. But I think we see people reverting back to Bitcoin as unit of account. Bitcoin is the reserve asset of the crypto ecosystem. Bitcoin is the safe haven asset, and this is being pounded into people's heads. So some of the money is the crypto assets that are looking for the safe haven, and as you get anxiety about everywhere else, you kind of run to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's not going to screw you. Bitcoin doesn't have a management team to take advantage of you, and it doesn't matter who you are. Don't trust me. You shouldn't trust any politician or any business person anywhere in the world. You should trust a protocol. People got bored with Bitcoin and in the crypto world, and they started thinking it's boring. I missed the boat, and they stopped appreciating the beauty and the simplicity of a protocol. And now I think they're rediscovering it. And I think you see that with the crypto entrepreneurs. I think you see that with Cointelegraph. I think you see that with CoinDesk. I think you see that on the cover of Bloomberg Crypto. I think you see that in the mainstream media. There's a grudging respect and an acknowledgement that maybe Bitcoin is not such a bad idea. Maybe Bitcoin is not boomer coin. Maybe Bitcoin is a good idea. And so that's part of it. I think the other part of it is Bitcoin, the network. If I can't settle on these stablecoin networks, if I can't settle with the crypto exchanges, if I can't settle with Silvergate and Signature, and if I get my banking access cut off, then the one settlement network that I can trust is the Bitcoin settlement network. So the value of Bitcoin as a settlement network has been undervalued. People undervalue the idea that I can move $1 billion on Saturday from point A to point B without asking permission. And maybe you see how I just basically said that everybody that needs to give you permission seems to be hostile. In a world where every single regulator and every bank, everything seems hostile. It's a hostile, dangerous world. You start thinking that maybe the ability to use the Bitcoin network is been undervalued. That would be my framing of everything going on right now. Bitcoin is an idea whose time has come. I don't think, by the way, Scott, I don't think that the Bitcoin rally is due to mainstream adoption of Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin rally is due to crypto adoption of Bitcoin. This is a catalytic event, Scott, that has rallied the entire crypto community behind Bitcoin, because we were at war with each other a year ago. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried and all of the other crypto ideas, of which there were probably 25 of them, they were frenemies, and they could not agree. And I think that when FTX melted down, I think it was a come to Jesus moment for crypto people, because they realized that we really have to put our differences aside and agree on one thing, which is Bitcoin is good. Right? And if you want to boil this down, my view is Bitcoin is open, permissionless, digital commodity. Nobody controls it. Everybody has to pay their way into it. If I want to have Bitcoin, I put $4.2 billion of real cash into Bitcoin. And if I say the wrong thing, the maximalists shred me tomorrow, and I know that I don't have any control whatsoever over the protocol, even though I paid $4 billion to buy into it, because it's everybody's property. And so Bitcoin is this common thing we can all agree on, and nobody owns. Everything else they're all good ideas, Scott. Bitcoin is rallying right now, and we're still early days with regard to the mainstream community getting it. I'll make one more point and I'll shut up. My last point is we're still 0.1%, 0.2% of the mainstream finance world. And so everything going on in the crypto ecosystem and the Bitcoin world is really just a sideshow. What happens in the, this mainstream opera, the regulators, the politicians, they're going to fight and they're going to take lots of action to stabilize that. That's above my pay grade. We're not going to fix that. There's a lot of complicated stuff that's going to go on. What you can expect is this is just taking us from 0.1% to 0.2% to 0.4% to eventually 1%. And when Bitcoin is trading at 10x where it is right now, we're going to be like a 1%.
Do you agree with Michael Saylor? Do all the 10 reasons he gave make sense for the bloody 2021 we had? And the reasoning behind the pump in 2022? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more curated daily crypto content like this, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks.